Annyeonghaseyo! Welcome to Afternoona Delight, where Leah, Megan, and Amy, romance novelists and your K-romance guides. So grab some dekboki and listen to your new favorite unnies.
Hey, everybody. It is me tonight, all by myself. Leah, your co-host. Megan and Amy are not here because of a very specific reason, and that is that I am coming on to do a show that is going to be more of a snack size episode, and it really is going to deal with my book release that will be coming out on November 12th, which you'll be listening to. Right now it's November 11th, the night before. And so from that context, I, talked to my co-hosts. I said that I was looking to do just like a small snack size pod, both for a promotional side, because of course, I am really invested in talking about my book as it comes out, but also just to kind of give a little bit more context to some of the reasons that I wrote it and to make the correlation, because I do owe a very big debt of gratitude to K-drama for the plot ideas and, elements of the story. And so I think before I get into any of that, though, this should be the first podcast that we put out, not the first we've recorded, but the first that comes out since the United States election. We have quite a lot of listeners that are in the US, and we have quite a lot of listeners that are overseas. We're kind of 50-50, which is interesting from a stats perspective. And look, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it tonight, but I do think that it's important to acknowledge it. And when I saw originally that my publisher had made the choice to put the book out on November 12th, I knew it was going to be a week after the election. And that was in the spring. And I thought to myself, okay, it's an odd week to put out a book. I mean, there's no perfect time. There's no bad time. There's no good time. There's just time. And knowing that my book was going to come out a week after the election, it did sit with me that I was going to say either this book is going to be coming out in a context where there's going to be historic celebrations, a moment of, relief for many, a moment of just acknowledging that, we could be moving to the first female president. And of course, that is not the reality that we are in. We are in the reality of who won the election. And I didn't put a lot of my energy into that space because I didn't want to. I am not sad that I didn't, because I don't feel like I would have gained anything from that. But I did have, moments sometimes of wondering what would it look like if that was the case, which is where I find myself and where I'm at with it. I mean, look, there's no easy pat answer I can give. It is challenging, and yet I have found a way to feel okay still talking, because I was like, what I didn't want to have happen was, is it okay to talk about something that I've made in the context of like a much more grave situation that is coming, and policies that are, being discussed, and people being, put into positions of power who are going to cause direct harm to people in my community, people at my work, students that I support, family members that I love. And so this feels very personal to me. And I come from a place where politics are very personal, and they matter because I see the impact daily. I think that something that I've been sitting with as well has been, there's a quote, famous and rightly lauded academic, Kimberly Crenshaw, who coined the term of intersectionality. And the quote that has been sitting with me a lot this week is that when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. And that is something that I feel really has played out in the results here, is that people asking to have their voice heard, to be represented, is making people who have historically felt as if they hold power, it makes them feel like they're losing something because other people want to have anything. And so where does that leave me in having a book release and writing romance as part of my job? In part of my job, I am working in student affairs, so I can't separate myself. I hold two working identities. So part of my job, like my quote unquote day job, but honestly, it becomes a huge part of my life, is working in student affairs at a university in California, where I have a responsibility I take very seriously in supporting a wide range of students, having their needs met, both emotionally through basic needs, making sure that they're connected to resources available to them so that they can do what they need to do to be a student. And then through writing, I'm a romance writer, and it has been a minute since I have put out a book. So I was thinking about it today, taking stock, and it has been, I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty sure it's been about 7 years since I put out a book, which feels wild to me and also very real to me. And when we started this podcast originally, I'm gonna be vulnerable a little bit and say that when we started this podcast, of course I have been an author. I have published quite a lot of books. And I was aware that at the time I was not actively writing or publishing. And so coming out with a writing podcast alongside Megan and Amy, who were both actively writing at that point and actively publishing, there were times where I never felt like a fraud. And I would say that I'm not somebody that tends to suffer from imposter syndrome, but I always felt just like a little bit, I never wanted to end up being somebody who was like the weak link in the podcast and somebody who was, diminishing any of our credibility per se for writing. And I never have fully felt that, but I think there've been times if I've wondered, if I was bringing I think I was wondering how do I want to say it? Like if I was bringing best practice and kind of best lived experience to be able to, represent some of the conversations that we were having and ensuring that, I never wanted to feel like I was phoning it in. And I will say that I certainly have felt that way less and less lately. And I will say that I feel like I've had less and less time also to just sit back and just like absolutely go like hog wild binging romance. Because when people always say like, how do you do it all? I always try, and I know Amy and Megan are the same. We don't do it all. Something's always giving, something's always cracking. There's always a mess somewhere. And in my case, I have, gotten to where, I can like barely hang on and get through a drama, and not get through it in terms of like, I feel like I have to, I want to, and I want to have those aspects in my life still. And I feel as if in the last, year and a bit since I've started to write again, I've just had less and less free time. And that's okay because, I'm choosing to return to creative work. I'm choosing to write again. And I guess where I'm trying to go full circle in the story of, questioning about the election, questioning my role, talking about writing, is saying that I have often, and so have my co-host, said that, romance is a subversive genre, and it's quite a radical genre because it's centering the pleasure, the success, and the ultimate arc of, fulfillment for for women and for many marginalized folks. And so and to be, in my case, a female romance writer, I'm working through the female gaze, which I think is really powerful and something that I know a lot of us appreciate within Korean dramas as well, of what does it mean to look at desire, pleasure, sex, bodies, fulfillment, and wanting, in a way that I guess the context I could almost say could move into like selfishness, and selfishness in the positive thing, focused on the self-desire, self-actualization. And I feel as if where I kind of landed with the election was that these stories and doing this work is more important now to me than it was a week ago. And not that it wasn't important before, it was very important before. But I feel as if, we're moving into a space where so much is going to have to be resisted again. And I know and I know the privileges that I hold being, a white college educated woman in a blue state on the coast in a very liberal town. And so there are many things that I'm going to have to be doing as we move forward. Many ways I'm going to have to show up for others who have less privilege. Many ways I'm going to have to make space for people to have a voice. Many times I'm going to have to shut up and not talk so that others can express themselves and make space for them. Times I'm going to have to be the person who does talk and does hold the discomfort because that's my responsibility. And within it, that's work. And having the opportunity to know I can create worlds that are escapist, having the opportunity to focus on the fact that, you can get what you want and have what you need and be fulfilled. The fact that we can, even in a fictional context, have, a space to say, these are the green flags that feel like they're giving us what we need. I want to be a part of that. And I feel like that is really important. And I also want to have a place that people can just set down their day and they can disappear into something and protect an aspect of themselves that's them, so that, any of you who, if I can give you a break mentally, if I can make you feel happy, if I can make you feel like you had escapism, then you've had a place of rest to be able to come back into quote unquote reality and keep doing that work too. And so I think that is where I'm sitting at right now in November 2024, knowing that we have a lot to come and knowing that I feel a lot of obligation mixed with gratitude to be in the position that I'm in, and that I won't take it lightly. I moving forward, I do want to keep writing stories, and I do want to think about where I can be showing up for the kind of world, the kind of love, the kind of happiness that I value and that I see in my normal life, my day-to-day life, and that I think deserves to have a place at the table of, being options that we can look forward to and that we can want. So all that to say, today my book came out. It's called Puck and Prejudice. Just to give you a little bit of context, I don't read a lot of reviews. I certainly see some reviews. I certainly see some comments. I see when people put things in my DMs, and occasionally I'll come across things on TikTok, or I'll come across things on social media, and, I'll see people talking about my book, which is always surreal. And sometimes it's really positive. Sometimes it's not positive. And I try not to really get into it and wade into it, but, sometimes you come across it in the right mood. Of course you're going to look. I mean, why wouldn't I? I mean, I'm curious. And so one thing that I saw that I think it made me smile when I saw it, somebody was like, look, I feel like somebody being me, I feel like Leah Riley came up with this title and then tried to find a book that would make it work. And I didn't feel like it was like a big compliment, but it was the truth. And so I started laughing because that's exactly what happened. So I was in the shower, and this was a period of time after, if you've listened to this podcast for, any great amount of time, you're going to know that I love BTS and that I identify as ARMY and that I am a Suga ultimate bias. And I had watched a documentary that he put out on Disney that was called The Road to D-Day. And in watching it, it was, a look at him putting together his third solo album, D-Day, and kind of like the agony and the ecstasy of creation. And in watching it, there are times where he's getting up and kind of losing it and punching a couch in his studio and just being oh, and he's saying, he's basically saying fuck and how like there's kind of like a laughing, but like a pain, and there was kind of like a current of stress, but a current of like, I gotta make this. And as I watched this documentary, honestly, by the end of it, I just was left feeling jealous in a really interesting way that like kind of I couldn't shake, which was I just wanted to have, I know what it feels like to, I don't write happily, I guess. And so like even in writing this book, like my agent would call me and be like, "Are you having so much fun?" And I'd be like, "No, I am never having fun when I write." Like anyone who wants to know, like I will complain loudly and not complain from a point of view of like, I understand how lucky I am, but I constantly am stressed. I constantly am self-critical. I am a Virgo. You're not going to find anyone more critical of themselves than me on like a regular basis. Even if I do have really healthy self-esteem and confidence. And so, I tend to, be that person that will just be like, screaming into an empty room or flopping around on a couch. And as much as it's painful and frustrating, I really love it. And I also have been really open that I have raging ADHD, and engaging in work like this, just like it is the most painful yet satisfying work I can do. And so I dedicated the book to him. Like if you open up the book, they let me do the emoticon, which he is famous for, of the thumbs up. And I wanted to dedicate the book to him because honestly, I feel like in watching D-Day, it made me want to write again. So I kind of put out into the universe, like I'm ready to return to writing in a serious way. And I was in the shower and I got the idea that name struck me, and I was like, that's a funny name. Like I laughed when I thought of it, and then I thought, well, clearly somebody's like done this name before, and I went online and Googled it, and I didn't see it, and I was like, oh, well, I'm not saying it's like the most genius thing of all time, but I was like, okay, like this feels like maybe I need to like, yeah, I need to get into the place of curiosity now and think like this name came to me. I haven't seen it used. What can I do with it? And so I plotted out a whole story originally that was about like very much like a Jane Austen retelling kind of in modern time. And it was fine. And I showed it to my agent and she's like, it's fine. She's like, honestly though, I feel like it's fine. She's like, I kind of want to be really surprised. And this doesn't feel surprising to me. And I was kind of like, oh, because I'd like worked really hard on the synopsis, and I'd been watching all these K-dramas, and I felt like I had all the beats down. And so to like go back and like, tear up, 8 pages of single space plot was like, oh God, but I did. And the premise that, we landed on that seemed like it could be weird enough to work was, what if it was a time travel? And when we had that conversation, I thought, look, this is either a very, very, very bad idea or a very, very good idea. And I kind of went home and I sat with it. And what I thought about was Korean dramas and what dramas I have really enjoyed that have had an element of time travel that I found compelling. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today, because the plot came to me really quickly once I kind of just like opened myself up to the possibility of like embracing being weird, because I tend to have a little bit more offbeat taste, and so allowing myself to have that a little bit more and to like kind of like dive into some of my K-drama tastes and kind of be like, what if I bring more of that into this idea? What will that look like? How is that going to feel? And so I want to talk about 3 dramas today. And they are going to be Splash Splash Love, Moon Lovers, and Mr. Queen. And the reason why I picked these 3 is because they influenced me in a specific way. And that was that I really like there's an anime term. So this is a Japanese word, and it features in a lot of Japanese stories, but it's also made its way into the conceit has made its way into Korean dramas, and it's isekai, which is the idea of time travel through water portals, essentially. And so Splash Splash Love, Moon Lovers, and Mr. Queen all kind of have this like interesting pattern of water being used as a gateway between worlds. And that is something that I decided to tap into in this story, where I have a pond that is, kind of like an ancient portal, and my hero inadvertently enters it. And when he comes out of the water, he has transported back into 1812. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these three dramas because I like them, I recommend them, and then I'll try to tie it back in at the end with my book. So the first one I think that I saw that had the water portal is Splash Splash Love. So this drama holds a special place in my heart, and it is very short. I think it's like 2 episodes. And look, if you're like Megan and you don't love a high school drama, you might want to skip it. But again, it's only 2 episodes. It's short and it is very clever. And the main character, Don B, is a lot like me in high school, struggling with math. And so, she's trying to escape her college entrance exams. And she ends up jumping into a puddle and she ends up in the Chosen Dynasty. And what is fun and interesting in it is that she crosses paths with King Sejong, who basically invented Hangul, and she ends up being a eunuch tutor for him. And it's got really great chemistry. And another thing that's just kind of like relatably fun about it is that Dumby will like look at every puddle being like, is that my ticket home? And I think that that's really relatable because, often in life, and especially lately, we're often looking for like those escape routes in our own lives. So very short, but very fun. Very fun drama. And I guess I would say has a be on the water portal, like a comparison that I would have to Puck and Prejudice would be that King Sejong's a real person. I feature Jane Austen in my book. She's one of the close dear friends of my heroine. So, that interesting intersection of like having like a real person fictionalized and, coming to life, and, a slightly outlandish story that's meant to be in good fun. So the next one is going to be, it's one of my favorite dramas. If you listen to the pod, it's one of my favorite dramas. And it's also one that, I've rewatched a few times, and every time it manages to break my heart. And that is Moon Lovers. So this one hits a lot differently than Splash Splash Love. And so in this one, we have the heroine Go Ha-jin, played by IU. She falls into a lake during the eclipse. And I'm not going to say that this one is a cute time travel romance. It can be very fun and funny. It can be very painful. Yeah, it's not 2 episodes. It's like 20 plus. But here is what happens in this one that I think is interesting is, so Ha-jin, when she travels back in time, she enters the body of someone else called Heisu. And Heisu is, and here's another thing I'm going to just kind of like say as an aside, is that in this time travel, she does not kind of belabor that. And I thought about this when I wrote my own book, because I've seen a few reviews that have been like, they kind of like accept the wildness of the time travel very quickly and move on. And I did that as a conscious choice, because I thought if you spend so much time doing what any of us would do in real life, which is if we fall in a pond and we crawl out and we're like in a different century, we're going to spend our whole time being like, holy shit, this is crazy. But that's not like very compelling to just watch somebody sit around the whole time, like for 2 hours going, holy shit, this is absolutely bananas. And so in Moon Lovers, of course she's got times where she's like, this is wild, but for the most part, she just gets on with it. The story just like starts rolling out. And that kind of gave me permission when I was trying to figure out how to handle it in the book. I was like, we're just going to get to it. Like, we're just going to keep going. Like, yes, it is wild. And yes, the characters will comment on it, but the story is off to the races and we are going for it. And so with the heroine, she knows how history plays itself out, but she's powerless to change it. And so and so I don't want to get into a lot of spoilers, but there's one character who is there's multiple love interests in this drama. Like everybody loves her, but one of the main love interests, she knows that he is destined to become a very controversial king. And that causes her a lot of turmoil because she knows what she knows things about. I'm trying to think about to say, I'm going to say a little bit here. So if you want absolutely no spoilers, like skip ahead for 45 seconds. If you can handle a little bit, I'll try to do it as loosely as I can. He was notorious for having killed brothers in pursuit of the throne. And when she comes into this world, not only does she love him, but she becomes she connects with all of these brothers. They're all important to her. And so she has this like thing of like how like this is destined to end so badly. But yet like there's an element of like, can I affect some sort of change within it, or should I not? And I think that was something that I tried to like touch. I mean, look, of course, anybody who goes into time, there's going to be changes that happen. But like that was something I didn't want to spend my whole book on that, but I did have time where like I try that those are elements of the plot that you see my characters grappling with as well. So the last one is, I am the only one on the pod who loves this drama. I don't care. And I will not apologize because I love it, love it, love it. And that's Mr. Queen. And look, I do love a cooking show. I do love a historical drama. So seeing a modern day male chef wake up in a queen's body was going to be like always peak entertainment for me. This is more of a body swap situation where we have the protagonist moving into the body of the queen. I also find this to be like a deeply fascinating queer-ish drama because like I talk about, you can go back and listen to the podcast, but where we review this, but I do feel like this is a situation where you have a male soul in with a female soul in a female body, both of them having feelings for a king, and kind of, there is a lot of fluidity. There is a lot of like, who loves who for what? Does gender matter? Are we post gender? What is it? But I feel like there's enough going on that it feels rich and fun. And I would have taken, they didn't lean hard in to that space. And, kind of like Coffee Prince, where I could have, gone way more into post-gender love with Coffee Prince too, but we didn't get to have that necessarily in Mr. Queen, but I got enough that it was compelling to me and I enjoyed it. Um and and so I think also what I liked in it was like there is an element of like just go along for the ride, I guess, and just accept the fact that like it's kind of a wild premise, and you could just like laugh at it and be like, it's too silly for me. And you've got every right to, just like you could with my book. Or you could be like, look, I'm going to jump in and engage and just kind of accept the bananas, and accept that like within the bananas, there's like actually like some earnest heart as well. So, so yeah, those are three dramas that use water as a time travel medium, like mine. And, you know, is it that water can represent change? Is there some element of like purification that happens? Or maybe it's just like a very dramatic element to film, because watching people move, the scene where my hero enters the water, like I like to think that there's an element of drama and flair that happens there. And, later when he enters water again, there's also drama and flair. And so there is something about water and water portals that I really do like and appreciate. And I'm grateful to Korean dramas to get me to think more out of the box and embrace kind of how you can tell a story that is unexpected and expected all at the same time. Because look, I do not think that I have like revolutionized anything. Like this is at the book I wrote at in its guts is a rom-com. Where it's unusual or different is and something that was actually hard to do, frankly, and I don't think I appreciated it until I started doing it, was so it's dual POV, dual points of view, but my heroine is, from 1812 and my hero's from now. And so there's more of like a historical conceit voice and there's more of a contemporary voice. And it wasn't until I put that in practice that I realized like I did have one of those like, I was chasing that high, that creative high of the agony and the ecstasy. And boy, did I get it with that of, is this going to be something where it's going to be like feel too modern for somebody who like loves Regency, or is it going to feel too historical and like distancing for somebody who just loves contemporary? And am I just going to end up pissing everybody off in this experience? Like, is it going to feel like it's just like nobody got what they wanted? And I had to kind of just like get over myself. I had to get over negative talk. I had to get over fears and just kind of accept, you know what? Just like in like a Mr. Queen type thing of this is going to be what it's going to be. And there's going to be people who aren't going to like it, but I cannot be writing for fear. I just have to write what the story is. And the fact that like while it is silly and while it doesn't take itself seriously, it does take itself seriously and it is earnest and it does have a point of view. And like when I got to the ending and like choices I made, like I thought about those and I was trying to say something with those things. And so you can be unserious and serious all at the same time. And you can have things be very silly and you mean it. And so I think that all of these dramas too, Mr. Queen, Moon Lovers, and Splash Splash Love, all have like an earnestness at their core as well, which I think is really lovely because why does everything have to either be like so silly that like you have to be embarrassed about it or like, apologetic, but or like so serious that like it's just like there's no sense of humor. I'm like, for me, touch some grass, enjoy genre fiction and have some fun and if it's not your cup of tea, totally fine, because guess what, there's so many types of tea out there in this world that you can drink. So as long as you find something that's your flavor and that you like it, like I support that. I don't want to give away too much else with the book, but I did obviously put in some other K-drama chestnuts. The only one that I'll really kind of like call out just for anyone who comes across it is, you know, I do have a white truck of doom moment, which I came up with when I caught the flu writing this book on deadline, so I didn't have a lot of time to pull over. So as I was writing, as I was like basically spiking 104 fever, is when I thought it would be a good idea to include a reference to a white truck of doom. You can see what you think about it when you get there. If you've watched any K-dramas, you're going to get the references when you get to that point, and you'll probably catch a few others. What do I have next? I handed in a book 2 weeks ago for a book that's going to be coming out in 2025. That's called The Emma Effect. And I talked about this on the pod with Amy and Megan the other day that I actually did my first fisheye kiss in this one. Controversial, but I really wanted to try it because, again, I have fun bringing in some of the conventions that we love or annoy the crap out of us and watching K-dramas and seeing what they feel like when they translate onto the page. And that was one I just, it's one of those ones that always annoy me, but I was like, I kind of want to try it and see what it feels like. And I can't say I hated writing it, and I can't say I think it went badly. I think it's actually kind of a good scene. So I am really happy that I started watching K-dramas for so many reasons, because it brought me closer in my already great friendship with Megan and Amy. It introduced me to stories that have made the last few years so much more fun and enjoyable, um, emotional, meaningful. And I know we always say it, but it is the most true, is it introduced me to so many of you, because that, I guess, is like what I want to leave for the full circle from starting with the election to ending is who we hold in our space, in our hearts, in our time really matters in moments like these. And knowing that we have a community that is truly global, like that is across this country, that is across the world, matters to me in a way that I don't think that I'm like almost going to cry, that matters to me in like such a profound level that I don't really have the way to articulate it except to say that it's been on my mind, that I want to lean into it more for myself, more for everyone to have more space. I don't take the responsibility lightly for being somebody that helps create the space. And I want to hold it for everyone else because we're all making it together. You know, I'm not just talking. I feel so much sometimes. I don't actually. Okay. I'm like saying like two things at once. I am sitting right now alone in a room talking at a computer screen. And I feel like it is odd to podcast by myself always because I'm used to talking to other people. So just sitting and talking by myself feels kind of just odd. And I know that I'm not talking alone because whenever you're listening to this, I'm talking to you. And even if I don't see you, you don't see me, we can't like necessarily respond back and forth in a conversation, there is like an energy shift that happens. There is transaction that occurs that I hope is positive. And yeah, I want to give great gratitude to it. I really want to give a lot of gratitude to that and to affirm that we're not going anywhere and we want to keep watching dramas with you all, and we want to keep writing, and we want to keep working for love and for justice. And I can't even believe I'm wrapping it up here, but I am. I'm going to say I want people to get the happy endings that they deserve to have, no matter where they come from, who they love, what truth they're living about themselves. I want them to have their happy ending. And I come from the belief that, you know, we're not all free until everybody's free. And that's the premise that I'm going to be working from. So thanks for listening to me. Watch those dramas. If you want to read Puck and Prejudice, I would be very honored. And let's keep talking and let's keep working together and let's keep holding each other up. And that's it from me tonight. So, annyeong.
감사합니다. Thank you for listening to Afternoona Delight. Where can you find us outside the pod? Head on over to afternoonadelight.com. That's AFTERNOONADELIGHT.com. You'll find links to all our social media, our book recs, K-pop and K-skincare recs, and if you want even more Afternoona Delight, because really who doesn't, you can join our Patreon, where you can choose the patron level that's right for you. Join in daily K-drama conversations, listen to bonus podcast episodes just for patrons, and participate in our monthly live K-drama support group via Zoom. We can't wait for you to be a part of the community. Until next time, annyeong!